I remember the day they fired my father like it was yesterday. I was 19, a summer intern at Sterling Technologies, watching from my cubicle as security escorted him out of the building. 25 years of loyalty ended with a cardboard box and a humiliating walk of shame. Budget cuts, they told him. Nothing personal. But it was personal. I knew because I'd accidentally seen the emails while filing documents for HR. They'd replaced him 2 weeks later with the CEO's nephew, fresh out of college, no experience, but the right last name. That was 10 years ago. Now I sat in my private jet, reviewing the final acquisition papers for Sterling Technologies. They had no idea that quiet little Sarah Maxwell, the forgotten intern from a decade ago, was about to become their boss. Ms. Maxwell, my assistant's voice broke through my thoughts. The board meeting is scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. All the paperwork is ready. I nodded, setting down the papers. Perfect, and they still don't know. No, ma'am. The acquisition has been handled entirely through shell companies. As far as Sterling Technologies knows, they're being bought by Nova Industries. I smiled, thinking of the look that would cross CEO Richard Sterling's face when he realized who really owned Nova Industries. The same man who'd smirked as he signed my father's termination papers would soon be signing his own. The jet began its descent into New York. Through the window, I could see the Sterling Technologies building, 50 stories of glass and steel, crowned with their pretentious logo. Soon it would all be mine. Your father called again. My assistant added quietly, he still doesn't understand why you insisted on him coming to New York tomorrow. Dad had no idea what I'd built over the past decade. After his firing, he found work as a high school technology teacher, making barely enough to get by. I'd helped quietly over the years, sending anonymous bonuses through his school, making sure his mortgage mysteriously got paid off. But he never knew it was me. I'd started my company in my garage, just like the tech giants everyone worshipped. But unlike them, I stayed in the shadows. No press interviews, no public appearances, no social media presence. The few photos that existed of me were carefully curated to be forgettable. When Forbes tried to profile me for their 30 under 30 list, I declined. Let everyone think Nova Industries was run by some faceless corporation. The anonymity gave me freedom to build, to acquire, and now, to get revenge. The next morning, I dressed carefully in a simple black suit, nothing flashy, nothing memorable. In the mirror, I looked like any other corporate executive. Perfect. The board is assembled, my assistant reported as we pulled up to Sterling Technologies. Mr. Sterling is apparently in quite a good mood. He thinks the Nova acquisition will let him keep his position as CEO. I checked my phone one last time. A text from Dad. At the hotel you recommended. Still don't understand why you wanted me in New York, sweetheart. Don't you have work today? You'll understand soon, I texted back. The security guard barely glanced at my ID badge. Sarah Maxwell, Nova Industries representative. I was just another suit to him, certainly not the woman who would own the building by lunch. The elevator ride to the 50th floor felt familiar. I'd made this trip hundreds of times as an intern, carrying coffee, delivering mail, watching silently as entitled executives made decisions that ruined lives. Sterling's secretary jumped up as I entered. Ms. Maxwell, Mr. Sterling and the board are waiting in the main conference room. I paused at the door, straightening my jacket. Through the glass, I could see Richard Sterling at the head of the table, laughing with his executives. The same laugh I'd heard when he joked about trimming the dead weight after firing my father. The room fell silent as I entered. Sterling stood, extending his hand with that practiced corporate smile. Ms. Maxwell, welcome. We're so excited about this new chapter with Nova Industries. I shook his hand firmly, remembering how he hadn't even bothered to shake my father's hand that last day. The feeling is mutual, Mr. Sterling. Please call me Richard, he gestured to an empty chair. Shall we begin? Actually, I said, staying standing. We should wait for one more person. I took the liberty of inviting someone with a particular interest in this acquisition. Sterling frowned slightly. I wasn't aware. The door opened and my father walked in, looking confused. He aged in the past 10 years, his hair more gray than black now, but he still carried himself with the same quiet dignity. Sarah? He looked around the room, clearly puzzled. What's going on? Sterling's face went pale. James Maxwell. What is he doing here? I smiled, pulling out my chair at the head of the table, Sterling's chair. Please, everyone sit. It's time we had a long overdue conversation about the future of Sterling Technologies. Now see here, Sterling sputtered. This is highly irregular. The acquisition agreement. The acquisition agreement, I cut in smoothly, gives me full authority to make any personnel changes I see fit. As the owner of Nova Industries and now Sterling Technologies, I intend to exercise that authority immediately. The room went absolutely silent. Sterling's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. My father stared at me, understanding slowly dawning in his eyes. Owner? Sterling managed finally. But you're the quiet intern you never noticed. I finished for him. The one who fetched your coffee and filed your paperwork? The one who watched you fire her father for no reason except nepotism. I leaned forward. Yes, I'm that Sarah Maxwell, and I now own your company. Dad sank into a chair, his face a mix of shock and something else. Pride, maybe. Sarah, honey, what did you do? I opened my briefcase and began distributing documents. What I've been doing for the past 10 years, building something bigger than Sterling could ever imagine. Nova Industries is just one of my companies. We're worth roughly $11 billion as of this morning's market opening. Sterling's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. This is impossible. You're lying. Would you like to see the paperwork? I slid a folder across the table. It's all there. Ownership documents, acquisition agreements, transfer of control. As of 9 a.m. this morning, Sterling Technologies belongs to me. The board members were all staring at their copies, reality sinking in. They just discovered that the young woman they dismissed as a mere representative was actually one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. You can't do this, Sterling whispered. I already have. I stood up. And my first act as owner is this. Richard Sterling, you're fired. The words rang out in the silent room. 10 years of waiting, planning and building had led to this moment. I watched as security entered, my security now, to escort Sterling out. You'll regret this, he spat as they led him to the door. You have no idea how to run this company. I smiled, thinking of the empire I'd built while he wasn't looking. Actually, I do. I learned everything about how not to run a company by watching you. Now, shall we discuss the future of Sterling Technologies? Or should I say, Maxwell Technologies? The board members straightened in their chairs, suddenly very attentive. Amazing how quickly loyalty shifted when power changed hands. Dad was still staring at me, tears in his eyes. All this time, I reached over and squeezed his hand. All this time, I was building something. Something worthy of your legacy, Dad, something that would make things right. But this was just the beginning. Sterling's humiliation wasn't enough. I had plans for his precious company, plans that would transform it into something he never had the vision to imagine. The quiet intern he'd never noticed was about to show him exactly what she'd learned in his building. And this was only the first act. The news of Sterling's ousting spread through the building like wildfire. By lunchtime, every employee knew that the quiet woman in the simple black suit wasn't just another corporate representative. She was their new owner, and she orchestrated one of the most dramatic takeovers in recent business history. The press is already calling, my assistant reported, handing me a stack of messages. Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Bloomberg, they all want to know how the mysterious CEO of Nova Industries managed to stay hidden for so long. I set the messages aside. They can keep wondering. We have more important things to handle first. My father still sat in the conference room, now empty except for us. He hadn't said much since the revelation, just watched as I reorganized his former workplace with quiet efficiency. Why didn't you tell me? He finally asked. I sat down beside him. Would you have let me spend 10 years pursuing revenge? No, he admitted. I would have told you to let it go, to focus on building something for yourself, not tearing others down. But that's exactly what I did, Dad. I pulled out my tablet, showing him Nova Industries' portfolio. Look, technology innovations, renewable energy projects, educational initiatives. I didn't just build a company to get revenge. I built something that matters. His eyes widened as he scrolled through the projects. This is incredible. All those mysterious school funding programs, the technology grants, were from me. I finished. I wanted to help teachers like you who actually make a difference in people's lives. A knock at the door interrupted us. Sterling's nephew, the one who'd replaced my father, stood there looking nervous. Ms. Maxwell? I just wanted to explain about 10 years ago. I never knew that my father was fired to make room for you. I raised an eyebrow. Pack up your office, Mr. Sterling. Your position has been eliminated. He fled, and I turned back to my father. That felt good. But I wasn't done yet. The next morning, I called my first company-wide meeting. The main auditorium was packed, everyone from executives to maintenance staff. They all wanted to see the woman who pulled off the impossible. Many of you knew me 10 years ago. I began, standing at the podium. I was the intern who delivered your mail, organized your files, and listened while you discussed firing loyal employees to cut costs. The room was dead silent. Today, I'm your boss, and things are going to change. I clicked to the first slide of my presentation. Starting now, Sterling Technologies, soon to be Maxwell Technologies, will implement comprehensive employee protections. No more arbitrary firings. No more nepotism. No more treating people like disposable resources. I outlined my plans: profit sharing for all employees, educational benefits, child care facilities on site. The very things Sterling had dismissed as unnecessary expenses. But how can we afford all this? One executive called out. I smiled. The same way Nova Industries affords it, by valuing our people as much as our profits, by understanding that loyalty goes both ways. I paused. By not wasting money on things like the private golf club membership Mr. Sterling charged to the company while laying off workers. That afternoon, Richard Sterling held a press conference outside the building. I watched from my new office, his old office, as he tried to spin the story. This hostile takeover is a personal vendetta, he declared to the cameras. Sarah Maxwell is using her father's termination from a decade ago to justify. My phone buzzed. A text from my PR team. Should we respond? No need, I replied. Instead, I sent out a company-wide email announcing immediate raises for all support staff, funded by canceling executive bonuses. Let Sterling rant to the press. I was busy actually running the company. The days that followed were a blur of activity. I restructured departments, eliminated redundant management positions, and implemented new policies. The old guard resisted, of course. 3 vice presidents resigned in protest. Good, I told my assistant as she reported the resignations. Have HR post those positions internally first. Let's promote people who actually do the work. A week after the takeover, I found my father waiting in my office. He'd been quiet lately, processing everything. But now he held a newspaper with my face on the front page. The article calls you the shadow CEO, the billionaire who built an empire in secret just to get revenge. He set the paper on my desk. Is that really what this was about? I walked to the window, looking out at the city. When they fired you, I learned something important about power. The people who have it don't want you to know you can take it from them. I turned back to him, so I became invisible. I let them think I was harmless while I built something they couldn't ignore. And now? Now I'm going to show them how a company should really be run. I smiled. Starting with the employee education program I'm naming after you. His eyes misted over. Sarah. The James Maxwell Technology Education Initiative. I continued. Fully funded college scholarships for employees' children, plus a special grant program for high school technology teachers. He hugged me then, something he hadn't done since I was a teenager. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart, not because you succeeded, but because of how you're using that success. A knock at the door interrupted us. My assistant entered with an urgent expression. Ms. Maxwell, Richard Sterling is downstairs. He's demanding to see you. I checked the security feed on my tablet. Sterling stood in the lobby, red-faced and disheveled, nothing like the polished CEO who'd fired my father. Send him up, I said. It's time to finish this. Sterling burst into my office minutes later. You think you've won? You think you can just walk in here and take everything I built? I stayed seated, calm. Everything you built? You inherited this company from your father. The only thing you built was your golf handicap. You smug little. He caught himself, trying to regain composure. I have friends in this industry. Powerful friends. They won't do business with you. You mean like Anderson Tech or Global Systems? I pulled up their logos on my screen. Nova Industries acquired them last year. Your powerful friends already work for me. I stood up. Face it, Richard. You're not just fired, you're obsolete. He slumped, suddenly looking old. What do you want from me? Nothing, I replied. You're not important enough to want anything from anymore. Security will escort you out. Don't come back. After he left, my father shook his head. Was that necessary? Yes, I said firmly. He needed to understand that the power he abused for so long is gone. That the people he looked down on now look down on him. I picked up the newspaper with my picture. But you're right, this wasn't just about revenge. It was about proving that success doesn't belong to people like Sterling. It belongs to people who work for it, who build something meaningful. The next day, I called another company meeting. This time, I didn't talk about the takeover or Sterling. Instead, I outlined my vision for Maxwell Technologies, research initiatives, community programs, employee development. 10 years ago, I was an intern with a plan. I told them, today I'm your CEO. And I got here by understanding something Sterling never did. A company is only as strong as the people who build it, not the ones who inherit it. Looking out at their faces, from executives to maintenance staff, all equal in my eyes, I saw something Sterling never had: potential. So, I concluded, who's ready to build something amazing? The applause was deafening. As I left the stage, my father caught my eye from the front row. He wasn't just proud now, he was inspired. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying something. Sometimes it's about building something better in its place. Sterling had taught me that, though not in a way he intended. I returned to my office, not Sterling's anymore, and got to work. There was still so much to build, so much to improve. And this time, everyone would know exactly who was in charge. The quiet intern had found her voice, and she had quite a lot to say. The annual Morrison family Thanksgiving had always been a showcase of success. This year was no different, except that my sister Jessica was practically vibrating with excitement over her latest career breakthrough. The merger is almost final, she announced, cutting into her turkey with precise, manicured strokes. Once Stone Global partners with our firm, I'll be heading the entire West Coast division. I hid my smile behind a sip of wine. Stone Global, the mysterious tech consulting giant that had the business world buzzing. The company Jessica had been trying to court for months. That's wonderful, honey, Mom beamed. Another brilliant achievement. You always did know how to aim high. Dad nodded approvingly. Takes after me, she does. Born with business sense. Then, like clockwork, they all turned to me with their usual mix of pity and disappointment. I learned to recognize the exact moment it would happen at these family gatherings. Right after praising the successful child, time to check on the failure. And how's your job going, Diana? Mom asked delicately, as if the word might break if she said it too forcefully. Still at that reception desk, Jessica added with a smirk. What company was it again? I can never remember. Palmer Technologies, I said quietly, pushing mashed potatoes around my plate. And yes, still answering phones. Jessica's smirk widened. 8 years now, isn't it? Well, I suppose someone has to do it. Not everyone can handle the pressure of real corporate success. If she only knew that her precious merger depended entirely on my signature, not that she ever discovered Stone Global was just one of my company's many aliases. The truth was almost too delicious to keep to myself. Almost. Speaking of Palmer Technologies, our cousin Michael chimed in. Didn't they just get acquired by some bigger firm? Hope you don't lose your job, Diana. Though I'm sure Jessica could find you something entry-level at her company. I nodded vaguely, remembering the acquisition papers I'd signed last week. Palmer Technologies was indeed under new ownership, mine. Just like the other 12 companies I'd quietly purchased over the past 5 years. The story of how I built my empire while my family thought I was just a receptionist started 8 years ago, though the seeds were planted much earlier. Growing up in the Morrison family meant constant pressure to follow the approved path. Prestigious business school, corporate ladder, corner office with a view. Jessica embraced it wholeheartedly. I had different ideas. Computer science. Dad had exploded when I announced my college major. What kind of career can you build with that? You need a business degree to succeed in this world. Mom had been more subtle in her disapproval, but just as firm. Darling, wouldn't you rather follow your sister's path? Look how well she's doing at Harvard Business School. But I stuck to my choice. While Jessica was memorizing business theories, I was learning to code. While she networked at cocktail parties, I built programs that would revolutionize how companies handled data security. By graduation, I had developed an encryption algorithm that caught the attention of several major tech firms. I sold it for $2 million, but not to any of the obvious buyers. Instead, I worked through shell companies and intermediaries, keeping my name out of every transaction. That was when I learned the power of anonymity. In the tech world, especially in cybersecurity, being unknown was an asset. Companies would pay premium prices to mysterious developers who could solve their problems without wanting public credit. So I started my first company under a different name, then another, and another. Each one specialized in a different aspect of tech consulting, but all operated under the umbrella of my main corporation, which would eventually become Stone Global. The receptionist job at Palmer Technologies was originally just a cover story to appease my family. I needed something believable, something that would keep them from asking too many questions about my real work. But it turned into something far more valuable, an inside view of how traditional companies operated and, more importantly, failed. I watched as Palmer's management made mistake after mistake, missing opportunities that were obvious to anyone paying attention. When their stock price started to fall, I was ready. Through one of my shell companies, I began buying shares. Quietly, strategically, never enough at once to raise suspicion. The same pattern played out with other companies. While Jessica climbed a corporate ladder the traditional way, I was building a web of interconnected businesses, each piece carefully hidden behind layers of corporate anonymity. More turkey, Diana? Mom's voice pulled me back to the present. Though you should be careful, receptionists need to maintain a professional appearance. I accepted the extra serving, thinking about the memo I needed to review after dinner. The one about Jessica's company and their desperate attempt to partner with Stone Global. The irony was almost too perfect. You know, Jessica said, reaching for her wine glass. My firm is launching a new tech division. We might need someone to handle the phones. Would you be interested in a change? The pay would probably be better than what you're making now. I thought about my net worth, currently hovering around $3.8 billion, and managed not to laugh. I'm comfortable where I am, but thanks. Comfortable, she sighed. That's your problem, Diana. You've never pushed yourself to achieve anything more. You're too comfortable being ordinary. Dad shook his head. At least she has steady work. Though I still think you could have done more with your life if you'd listened to us about business school. I took another sip of wine, remembering the latest Forbes article about Stone Global, the mysterious tech giant reshaping the industry. The reporter had tried for weeks to uncover the identity of the founder, speculating about various high-profile tech moguls and business leaders. No one had even come close to guessing it might be the quiet woman who supposedly answered phones at Palmer Technologies. Jessica, Mom said eagerly, tell us more about this merger with Stone Global. It sounds so exciting. My sister straightened up, preening. Well, I can't reveal too much, but let's just say I've been personally handling the negotiations. The CEO is very impressed with my proposals. I nearly choked on my wine. I had never even spoken to Jessica. All communication was handled through various executives and lawyers. Her proposals had been uniformly terrible, but I kept the process going because I needed access to her firm's client list. They're extremely selective about their partnerships, Jessica continued. The fact that they're even considering us is a huge compliment to my leadership. More like a testament to their due diligence, I muttered under my breath. What was that? Jessica asked sharply. Nothing, I smiled. Just thinking about how selective some companies can be. She narrowed her eyes. Well, it's not something you'd understand, given your position. Corporate strategy at this level is quite complex. If she only knew how many times I'd sat in my private boardroom, reviewing her company's painfully amateurish merger proposals, or how many of her brilliant innovations had made my executive team cringe. Speaking of positions, my Aunt Martha chimed in. Didn't you used to do something with computers, Diana? In college? Computer science degree, Dad grunted. Never did anything with it, though. I thought about the 3 patents currently revolutionizing cybersecurity, all registered under various shell companies, about the encryption software protecting government agencies around the world, about the artificial intelligence system I developed that was quietly transforming how global corporations handled data. Never really found my niche in tech, I said mildly, passing the cranberry sauce. As dinner wound down, Jessica couldn't resist one more dig. Don't worry, Diana. Not everyone is cut out for success. Someone has to answer the phones, right? I smiled, thinking about the meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning, the one where Stone Global's CEO would finally be revealed to her firm's management team. You're absolutely right, I said. Someone has to answer the phones. By the way, good luck with that merger. I have a feeling tomorrow's meeting will be very illuminating. Jessica raised an eyebrow, but before she could respond, her phone buzzed. Her eyes widened as she read the message. The Stone Global CEO is coming to tomorrow's meeting in person, she gasped. This is huge. They never make personal appearances. Mom clapped her hands in delight. Oh, Jessica, they must be really impressed with you. Well, I said, standing up, I should head home. Early day tomorrow, lots of phones to answer. As I drove home to my penthouse apartment, the one my family thought was a modest studio in a questionable neighborhood, I couldn't help but smile. Tomorrow would certainly be interesting. My phone buzzed with a message from my executive assistant. Final merger documents are ready for your review, Ms. Morrison. Also, the Forbes reporter is still trying to schedule an interview with Stone Global's mysterious CEO. I texted back, tell Forbes I'll consider an interview next week. But first, we have a merger meeting to attend. Tomorrow, Jessica would finally learn who really owned the company she'd been trying so desperately to impress. Tomorrow, my family would discover that their ordinary daughter had built an empire while they weren't looking. But tonight, I was just Diana, the receptionist who didn't amount to much. And somehow, that made tomorrow's revelation even sweeter. The next morning, I arrived at Jessica's firm 30 minutes early, not as the CEO of Stone Global, but as Diana the receptionist, wearing the same modest clothes I'd worn to Thanksgiving dinner. The security guard barely glanced at me as I walked through the lobby. My executive team was already in place, scattered throughout the building in various roles. My CFO posed as a maintenance worker. My head of operations sat in the lobby reading a newspaper. My chief legal officer was disguised as a coffee cart vendor. At precisely 9:55 a.m., Jessica strutted through the lobby in her designer suit, not even noticing me sitting quietly in the corner. She was too busy barking orders into her phone. I want everything perfect for this meeting. The Stone Global CEO never makes personal appearances. This is our chance to really impress them. I smiled, remembering how many times I'd reviewed her company's proposals, each one more desperate than the last. They needed this merger badly. Their last 3 quarters had been disastrous, though they'd managed to keep that quiet. At 10 a.m. sharp, I stood up and walked to the elevator. Jessica was already in the conference room with her management team, probably rehearsing her presentation one last time. I changed in my private elevator, the one installed secretly during the building's last renovation. The modest dress was replaced by a tailored Armani suit. The simple ponytail became an elegant updo. Even my posture changed, transforming from the apologetic slouch of someone used to being overlooked to the confident stance of a woman who owned everything around her. My executive team converged on the conference room floor, shedding their disguises as they walked. By the time we reached the doors, we were no longer playing parts. We were Stone Global's leadership, ready to reveal exactly who they'd been trying to impress all these months. The room fell silent as we entered. Jessica stood at the head of the table, her presentation ready to go. Her smile faltered slightly as she saw me. Diana? What are you doing here? This is a private meeting. I walked to the other end of the table, my team arranging themselves around me. Hello, Jessica, Mom, Dad. Our parents sat along one side of the table. Jessica had invited them to witness her moment of triumph. Perfect. I don't understand, Jessica stammered. Where is the CEO of Stone Global? You're looking at her, I said quietly. The silence that followed was absolute. Jessica's mouth opened and closed several times, but no sound came out. Mom dropped her designer handbag. Dad's face went from red to white to red again. That's impossible. Jessica finally managed. You're a receptionist. You answer phones at Palmer Technologies. Actually, my CFO interjected smoothly. Ms. Morrison owns Palmer Technologies, along with 12 other major tech companies. Stone Global is just one division of her larger corporation. I sat down at the head of the table, enjoying the way Jessica's perfect posture had crumbled into shock slumping. Palmer Technologies was my first acquisition, I explained. I kept the receptionist story as a cover while I built something bigger, something none of you could see because you were too busy feeling sorry for me. But, Mom sputtered. All these years, I continued, I've been building an empire while you thought I was just answering phones. Every time you pitied me, every time you made jokes about my wasted potential, I was signing deals worth more than this entire building. My chief legal officer passed out folders. These are the real merger terms. As you'll see, they're quite different from what you were expecting. Jessica finally found her voice. This is some kind of joke, some kind of trick. Check the business registrations, I suggested mildly. The patents, the corporate filings. Stone Global's founder and CEO has always been Diana Morrison. I just never bothered to correct anyone's assumptions about who I was or what I did. Dad grabbed one of the folders, his hands shaking as he read. These numbers. This is currently valued at just over $3.8 billion. My CFO supplied helpfully. Though that's a conservative estimate. The computer science degree, Mom whispered, the one we told you was worthless, led to 3 major patents in cybersecurity. The encryption software I developed is now used by governments worldwide. The artificial intelligence system I created has transformed corporate data management. I leaned forward. Still think I should have gone to business school. Jessica slumped in her chair, her perfect facade cracking completely. All those proposals I sent, you were reading them. Every painful word, I confirmed. Though I particularly enjoyed the one where you claimed to understand the future of tech security, especially since you were using my software to write it. Why? She demanded. Why keep up this pretense? Why let us think? Because you taught me something valuable, I cut in. All of you did. You taught me that people see what they expect to see. You expected me to be a failure, so that's what you saw. It was the perfect cover for building something extraordinary. I stood up, smoothing my designer suit. Now about this merger. The terms are non-negotiable. Your company will become a subsidiary of Stone Global, with significant management changes. I looked directly at Jessica, starting with your position. You're firing me, she gasped. Not exactly. I'm demoting you to where you should have started, an entry-level position where you can learn the business properly, not just play at being an executive. Dad started to protest, but I held up my hand. This isn't personal, Dad, it's business. Isn't that what you always taught us? The next hour was a blur of contracts, terms, and shocked realizations. My parents sat in stunned silence as their worldview completely inverted. Jessica alternated between anger and disbelief as she realized her career had been in my hands all along. As the meeting wound down, Mom finally asked the question I'd been waiting for. Why reveal yourself now? Why not stay hidden? I smiled, gathering my papers. Because sometimes success isn't just about building something great. Sometimes it's about showing the people who doubted you exactly what they failed to see. Walking out of the conference room, I paused by Jessica's chair. By the way, the reception desk at Palmer Technologies, it's actually empty. I never worked there. I own the building. The drive home that evening was surprisingly peaceful. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from family members who'd heard the news. Cousins who'd mocked my dead-end job now wanted to know if I was hiring. Aunts and uncles who'd used me as a cautionary tale suddenly remembered how they'd always believed in me. I ignored them all, instead calling my real estate agent about a new property I'd been eyeing. Coincidentally, right next door to Jessica's house. The one she'd been so proud of buying with her executive salary. A week later, I sat in my real office, the top floor of the Stone Global building, reading the latest Forbes article about the tech industry's most surprising CEO. The reporter had finally gotten their interview, and the story of the secret billionaire receptionist was making waves. My assistant buzzed in. Your sister is here to see you. She says it's about her new position. I smiled, remembering all the times Jessica had made me wait in lobbies. Tell her she can schedule an appointment with HR like everyone else. Sometimes success isn't about proving people wrong. Sometimes it's about letting them discover just how wrong they've been, all on their own. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Thanksgiving dinner this year, will you still come? I thought about it for a moment, then replied, of course. But this time, I'm hosting. at my real house. After all, what's the point of building an empire if you can't enjoy watching people realize they've been eating dinner with a billionaire who they thought just answered phones? The best revenge isn't served cold. It's served in a penthouse office with a view of the city you secretly own, watching people realize that the sister they pitied now signs their paychecks. And somewhere in a stone global building, there's still an empty reception desk. A reminder that success doesn't always look the way people expect it to. Sometimes it looks like a quiet woman in modest clothes, sitting in the corner, building an empire while everyone else is too busy feeling superior to notice. Hi, I'm Emily Parker, and this is the story of how my perfect sister's dream wedding turned into a nightmare. Not because I wanted revenge, but because sometimes the truth refuses to stay buried. I was adopted by the Parkers when I was 6 months old. My parents, especially my dad, James Parker, always made sure I never felt different from my biological sister Kate, who was born 2 years after they adopted me. At least that's what I thought for 28 years. Dad's company, Parker Innovation Labs, was his pride and joy, a small research and development firm that created custom solutions for manufacturing companies. I grew up watching him pour his heart into it, spending late nights in his home office reviewing projects and proposals. While Kate excelled in dance recitals and beauty pageants, I inherited Dad's passion for innovation. I spent my summers interning at the company, learning every aspect of the business. After getting my engineering degree, I joined full-time as a project manager. That was 8 years ago. Since then, I'd worked my way up to Chief Innovation Officer, helping transform our small family business into an industry leader worth over $100 million. Kate, meanwhile, had become a successful social media influencer, posting about luxury lifestyle and relationship advice. The problem started when Kate got engaged to Thomas Bradford IEI, heir to Bradford Technologies, one of our biggest competitors. This merger of families will be perfect for business, Mom gushed during Kate's engagement party at our family estate. The champagne was flowing, and everyone who was anyone in the tech industry had been invited. I should have seen the signs earlier. The whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. The strange looks from board members. The way Dad had been avoiding one-on-one meetings with me for weeks. Kate clanked her crystal champagne flute, gathering everyone's attention. She stood on the mansion's grand staircase, her designer dress sparkling under the chandelier lights. Thomas stood beside her, looking every bit the proud future CEO he was being groomed to be. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate our engagement," Kate beamed. "But there's something else we need to address tonight." My stomach dropped as her eyes found me in the crowd. "Emily, dear sister," her voice dripped with false concern. "We need to talk about the money." The room fell silent. I clutched my glass tighter. "What money?" "The $2 million that's missing from the company accounts." She paused for dramatic effect. "The money you've been embezzling for the past year." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. Whispers erupted around the room. I looked to Dad for support, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. "What are you talking about?" I managed to say. "I would never." "We have proof," Thomas interrupted, pulling out a folder. Financial records showing systematic theft through a series of cleverly hidden transactions, all traced back to your personal accounts. I felt the room spinning. "Dad, you know I would never steal from the company. Everything I've done has been for." "Save it," Kate snapped. "You're just the adopted one, trying to steal what rightfully belongs to the real Parker family. It's time to pay it all back." The silence that followed her words was deafening. I waited for Dad to defend me, to say something, anything. Instead, he slowly nodded. "The evidence is quite clear, Emily," he said quietly. "I think it would be best if you resigned immediately. We won't press charges if you return the money." In that moment, everything I thought I knew about my family shattered. 28 years of love and belonging crumbled under the weight of one accusation. I set my glass down carefully on a nearby table. "You want me to resign? Fine, I quit. But you should check those financial records more carefully before you make accusations." I walked out of the party with my head held high, ignoring the whispers and stares. As I reached my car, I heard Kate's voice ring out from the doorway. "Don't forget to return your company laptop and phone. We wouldn't want you deleting any evidence." I smiled despite the tears threatening to fall. My sister had always been so focused on appearances that she never bothered to learn how the company actually worked. She had no idea that for the past 3 years, I'd been documenting everything. That night, as I sat in my home office, I began implementing the contingency plan I created but hoped never to use. Years of watching other family businesses implode had taught me to always be prepared for betrayal. I pulled out my personal laptop and accessed a secure server that Kate and Thomas didn't know existed. Every email, every transaction, every piece of evidence showing who had really been stealing from the company. It was all there, waiting to be revealed. Kate's wedding was in a week. She planned an extravagant ceremony at the city's most exclusive venue, with over 500 guests, including every major player in the tech industry. She'd spent months ensuring it would be the social event of the year. Little did she know, I had my own plans for her special day. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone's future. It's about revealing the truth about their past. As I prepared for bed that night, my phone buzzed with a text from Kate. "Don't even think about coming to the wedding. Security has your photo." I replied with a simple smiley face emoji. She had no idea that I didn't need an invitation to crash her perfect day. After all, I designed the venue's security system myself. The next 7 days would change everything. But first, I had some calls to make. The morning of Kate's wedding dawned bright and clear. While she was probably getting her hair and makeup done at the Peninsula Hotel's presidential suite, I was in my home office making final preparations. The last week had been busy. I'd reached out to key industry contacts, set up meetings with the SEC, and gathered irrefutable evidence of what had really been happening at Parker Innovation Labs. But my most important call had been to someone Kate had completely forgotten about: our company's original programmer, old Joe. Joe had worked for Dad since the beginning, creating our core software systems. Kate and Thomas thought he retired 6 months ago. They didn't know he still maintained backdoor access to all company servers at my request. "Got everything?" I texted Joe at 9 a.m., "All downloaded and verified," he replied. "They never changed the master passwords. Amateurs." I smiled, thinking of Kate's face when she realized her clever financial tricks weren't so clever after all. The money she accused me of stealing, every penny could be traced back to offshore accounts belonging to her fiance's family. At precisely 2 p.m., I parked my car 2 blocks from the St. Regis Hotel. The wedding was scheduled for 4 p.m. in the Grand Ballroom. Security was tight. Kate had made sure of that. But she'd forgotten one crucial detail. I'd installed the hotel's entire security infrastructure 3 years ago through Parker Innovation Labs. I walked through the service entrance, nodding to the kitchen staff who recognized me from the system installation. My fingerprints still worked on the biometric locks, another oversight. I made my way to the control room, where my old friend Marcus was working security. "Emily?" He looked surprised. "They said you were banned." I handed him a USB drive. "Marcus, remember when I saved your job last year after that breach? I need a favor." 20 minutes later, I was settled in the ballroom's upper control booth. Below, guests were arriving, the who's who of the tech industry, all dressed in their finest. Mom was greeting people, wearing an expensive new dress. Dad stood with Thomas's parents, probably discussing the merger they'd announced yesterday. The merger that would save Bradford Technologies from bankruptcy, using Parker Innovation Labs' money. My money. The money Kate accused me of stealing. At 3:55 p.m., Kate made her entrance for photos. She looked stunning in her designer gown, beaming as cameras flashed. Thomas waited at the altar, looking every bit the proud groom. I waited until the ceremony began, until the minister asked if anyone had any objections. That's when I activated Joe's program. The ballroom's lights dimmed. The massive screens meant for wedding photos came to life. And there, in high definition, began playing a presentation I titled "The Truth About the Parker Family Fortune." Financial records, emails, secret meetings, every corrupt dealing, every stolen dollar, every lie, displayed for all to see. Kate's face went from confusion to horror as she watched proof of her fiance's embezzlement scheme unfold on screen. "Turn it off," Thomas shouted, but the hotel's systems weren't responding to anyone but me. Then came the recording, a conversation between Kate and Thomas from 3 months ago. "Once we frame Emily for the missing money, Dad will have to give me control of the company." Kate's voice filled the ballroom. "The adopted brat never deserved it anyway. And once we merge the companies," Thomas replied, "we can sell off Parker's assets to cover Bradford's debts." Your father will never know what hit him." The screen switched to security footage of them doctoring financial records in Thomas's office, carefully cracking the trail that would lead to me. The ballroom erupted in chaos. I emerged from the control booth, walking calmly down the main aisle. Kate stood frozen in her white dress, mascara running down her cheeks. "Security," she screamed when she saw me. "They work for me," I said quietly, or rather, they work for Parker Innovation Lab's security division, which I built from the ground up. Dad stepped forward, his face ashen. "Emily, Save it," I cut him off. "Check your email. You'll find copies of everything you just saw, plus documentation of every innovation and client relationship I brought to the company. My resignation terms are attached. You have 1 hour to accept them." "You're bluffing," Thomas snarled. "You've got nothing." I smiled. "The SEC disagrees. They're very interested in Bradford Technologies' creative accounting, as are your shareholders." I nodded towards several pale-faced board members in the crowd. "Oh, and Kate, you were right about one thing. I'm not a real Parker. I'm better. I built that company into what it is today, while you were busy taking selfies and plotting theft." Mom tried to approach me, but I held up my hand. "My terms are simple. I take 51% ownership of Parker Innovation Labs, effective immediately. Kate and Thomas are banned from any involvement in the company. And Dad, you can keep your position as figurehead CEO, but your voting rights go to me. And if we refuse?" Kate's voice shook. "Then I release everything to the media. Parker Innovation Labs might survive the scandal. Bradford Technologies won't." I turned to the shocked guests. "I suggest you all go home. I don't think there's going to be a wedding today." The next few hours were a blur of lawyers, documents, and tears. By midnight, I owned controlling interest in the company I'd helped build. Bradford Technologies stock was in freefall, and Kate's perfect wedding had become the scandal of the year. 1 week later, I sat in my new office, formerly Dad's, reviewing acquisition proposals for what remained of Bradford Technologies. A knock at the door interrupted my work. It was Dad, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "I should have believed in you," he said quietly. "Yes, you should have. Can we ever fix this?" I thought about it. Maybe. Not as father and daughter, you lost that right at the engagement party. But as business partners, we'll see. You taught me my first lesson about innovation. Sometimes you have to tear something down completely before you can build it back better. He nodded sadly and left. I turned back to my window, looking out at the city skyline. My phone buzzed. A text from Kate. "I'm sorry. I was wrong about everything." I didn't reply. Some apologies come too late. They say success is the best revenge, but I disagree. The best revenge is forcing people to face their own lies. Kate wanted a wedding that everyone would remember. Well, she got her wish, just not in the way she planned. As for me, I'm still the same person who loves innovation and building things. The only difference is now everyone knows what I'm capable of, and no one will ever call me just the adopted one again.